to In That Side. I'm Dom Harbin. I'm joined by Neil Williamson, Dave Brooks, Peter Bracken, and Adi the Scott Gloucesterman. How are we this evening, gents?
Very good,
Dom.
thanks.
Evening.
Good. So you're probably thinking it's a bit of a different format this week. We normally are speaking to an ex-player on his own, sort of grilling him on his career, trying to dig the dirt. But Neil came up with this pretty surreal idea Tuesday night, I think. Bearing in mind we're recording tonight, it's Wednesday. got a few rugby fans and faces from the home nations, obviously to fit in with the Six Nations. So just going to recap some games, get your honest opinions. No holding back. We may have to edit some bits out, but that can be done. So we'll just crack on. Obviously, no representation from Italy and France due to some late substitutions, we'll say.
Brexit, that's what it was.
Brexit, yeah, we'll just blame Brexit and COVID combination. So obviously, Italy, France kicking off Six Nations. There's been a few questions about Italy's participation, a lot with Georgia getting their show their face in the Autumn Nations Cup. Probably not as much as they'd like to, but they did get in there. I mean, France put 50 points on them. Young, very young squad, arguably the best scrum half in the world. What were we expecting, a 50-10 spanking there?
I wasn't surprised, if I'm honest. But I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I think France looked special this year. I think they could have put another 30 on them easily. But I don't know, what was anyone else's thoughts? Did everyone else watch the game?
Yeah, and I just think that Dupont is something else, Neil. He's a player on another level. I just think that what the French management are doing is they're molding a team around him, and rightly so. You've got a star in that squad, and it's him. And people will be paying good money to watch that guy and that guy alone, and he literally will light up this Six Nations, I think, in the same vein that Stuart Hogg will for Scotland. Dupont he just takes me back to the flair and the wizardry that the French had in the 70s and the 80s. And it's great because the Six Nations needs a strong France. It needs a strong six teams, full stop. But, France withered, didn't they, for a good decade, and they wobbled. They're now back, and they're back with a bang.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was showing that Dupont, man of the match, and he played, 55 minutes, I think it was, 60 minutes. Yeah. To not play a full game, arguably, and dominate the game that much to warrant man of the match is a credit in itself.
Yeah.
And the French pack looking pretty dominant too, if I'm honest.
I think when you've got 50 points on the board, you don't really want to ruin your best players, so
definitely.
The job's done.
Yeah.
Get the guys off the pitch. And then, they're playing a lot of rugby.
Yeah.
Injuries, they're taking big hits all the time, so squad, preserving your squad once the job's done, it's got to be part of it.
Yeah. From an Irish point of view, I'm getting a bit scared of France, as in the potential in France is always probably far beyond all the Six Nations teams, and the only one with the depth and whatever is England. England, I think, have the same potential. Got to a World Cup final. France were brilliant up until professionalism came in, and I played a year over in France. Professionalism doesn't suit their lifestyle. They can't have the smoke. Well, they do. That's the problem. They have the smokes, they have the coffee, they have their baguettes and their whatever. And, and then they went all big, bish, bash, bosh, big forwards, big backs, try to play a power game like South Africa, like England or whatever, but they're not English, they're French. So now they've kind of come back to typical France, a set of hard men up front, and then just flash and talent and skills out the backs. And not only have they just 15, they've probably 40 guys that can fit in and out, which So it is kind of scary, the potential that they have. And now with the likes of Sean Edwards in there, bringing a bit of discipline and a bit of oomph for them, they've probably the best of both worlds now. They're probably taking now at this stage, after 25, 30 years, start to decide to go professional, plus bringing the Frenchness into it. So who knows? Yeah, it could be a few good years for France.
I think it's good for everyone. Like Pete was saying, we need 6 strong teams in the Six Nations. And for years, obviously it's flip-flop, but for the last sort of decade, England and Wales, to a certain extent, have dominated. Ireland have been strong, haven't necessarily all come up with the goods, but they've come in. But as a kid, I always remember France used to dominate the Six Nations, used to absolutely run the teams ragged. And I think it can only benefit rugby as a whole for all these teams to improve. And I mean, I will get onto it in a minute, but I think England are going the other way, unfortunately. But
is it all cyclical though, Neil? Because like you say, it was France, then it was England, then it was Wales, and Ireland have been there or thereabouts, and you look at Italy and 20 years in the Six Nations, and every season you look at a potential scalp. Well, 20 years on, you've got to be looking at getting more than a potential scalp, surely.
Yeah. And what would your thoughts be then, Dave? Would you replace Italy with Georgia?
God, I mean,
that's a massive question.
It is a massive question because, the 6, the 5 that became 6, you go back to, when was it? 1900, when the 4 became 5, when France joined. And it took the French 25 years to start winning, didn't it? So you then ask the question, it's that old maxim, it's like when Ferguson took over United, it took him 3 years to actually start to get the wins under the belt. And you've got to look surely at World Rugby. What are they doing to help the likes of, Treviso, etc., and the Italian teams, and a lot of those Italian players, they play in the French league, don't they? Some play in the English Premiership and other leagues around the world. But in terms of helping them as a country, because there's something fundamentally wrong there when it comes to internationals, and it's sad. You as Dom said, that's a hell of a question. What do you do with them? I don't know is the honest answer.
I think it also takes a while to sort of gather a mass of supporters to actually get behind the rugby team as well.
Yeah.
So you kind of undo a little bit of that good if you were to bring in Georgia. Now, I'm not saying that Georgia don't have a nation that would get behind the rugby team, because anybody does. People are brought to every variety of sport, and the minute you start competing at an international level, it starts to bring in an interest that you might not have had historically. But Italy, it's a difficult one. It's one. I mean, Scotland still struggle against Italy. We can still have an off day. And still make a game of it, and still not score quite enough points to get us clear or be on the wrong side of it. But for everybody else, it seems to be a bit of a walk in the park, a sort of 35 plus points, 35 points on a bad day.
Was it a mistake, do you reckon, taking them to the Olympico, moving from the Flaminio, because that was a 30,000 maximum capacity stadium, and then you go into this Olympic stadium that holds 70 to 80,000. Was it a bit of a mistake doing that? Because all of a sudden you're taking that, it was almost an atmosphere of barbarism at the Flaminio, wasn't it? The players were like almost sort of crowded by the crowd, and that seemed to feed on the Italians. Was that a mistake moving away, do we reckon? I don't know.
Yeah, I think you lose a certain bit of atmosphere. Also, I think this year, Italy, teams have been hampered with injuries, but Italy in particular have got a lot of their bigger names out this year, to be fair to them. And it comes back to that balance. Yeah, we bring Georgia up, but we may, and empower them as a nation rugby wise, but we could completely unravel the progress we have made with Italy.
But we move to 7 nations.
7 nations. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it would last longer. I'm up for that. But I mean, what about a 2-tier system? Like a top and a bottom Six Nations, if you like. So you could bring in some of the minor teams to then play to go into the top tier Six Nations. I mean, would that work? Or because then you would still inspire the teams to want to get to that top group, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think it's a nice idea, but I don't think there's enough money in it for to tickle the frenzy of some of the bigger teams in the Six Nations, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I think just for competition, like it could work the other way. Like we're scared of getting rid of Italy, but what about the competition of every year? Like, first of all, you know, it'd be awful to be Georgia, like to be winning that second tier competition and not getting a look in. So
yeah,
you look at fairness, then I think deserve to go up. I would chance it and you know, does that give a kind of a boot in the backside to Italy? It may do. And if it's one down every year, well, every second year Italy will probably come back up anyway. So, like, will they move on or will they go backwards? I don't know. But I do know, like, Conor O'Shea brought in an awful lot of structural changes there, and it's funny, he brought another Irish guy in with him, Stephen Aboud, who wouldn't, a very Irish name, Aboud. But anyway, O'Shea and Aboud. Anyway, but Stephen Aboud was like, he like developed all the academy programs and everything in Ireland. And, you know, Ireland only got really properly good and competing year on year, like the last 10 years, 10, 15 years, we'd have a good run. But before that, we might win one or two games. And so but it took him 10, 15 years to get that through. Like when I started off playing rugby, there was no academy. There was no academies. So now there is, right? So he's doing the same in Italy. And, you know, I think given enough time, it will come true. But also, Italy are doing okay at under 20s.
Yeah.
You know, they're winning a few games at under 20s. And will that structure eventually come true? Now, the guys have been there 4 or 5 years. And, you know, everyone goes on a 5-year plan. Well, surely we should be seeing results now. But, you know, do you need to give them... It's hard to know. It's hard to know, isn't it? It's
and I think as well, Pete, World Rugby's got an obligation to help them. They got them into the championship back in 2000. It would be absolutely appalling if they said now, 21, 22, 23 years later, you know, that's it. We've given you a go. We're going to go back on our way. They can't do that. They need a bit of a helping hand. But, you know, going back to you know, the start now earlier about being walloped 50 points by France, you know what? Let's wait for the next couple of games and see what France do to Ireland, to Scotland, to Wales, and to England as well. Because if everyone else is going to be given an absolute pasting, then it's not just Italy that have got a problem.
All bets are off then, aren't they? Yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, go on, Pete. Carry on.
I don't think World Rugby like have World Rugby at the soul of what they do. Like, is developing rugby in places like Italy. It's supposedly World Rugby is there to help rugby, but does it? In my opinion, like they've shafted the Pacific Islanders for the last 20 years, and it's taken a documentary from Dan Leo and a few other guys to highlight the abuse of, you know, Pacific Island players all over the world and everything, and how, you know, so if they can't look after Fiji, Samoa, and Tonga, are they going to really look after Italy? And I can see World Rugby, they have their eye on a big prize in their eyes, the likes of the United States.
Yeah.
And, you know, okay, they're putting a lot into Japan. So greed can lead to a lot of decisions. So, you know, if you're World Rugby and rugby is your main priority, well, then, of course, you look after Italy. But if you're World Rugby and money's your most important influencer, well, then you're looking at the States, you're looking at Japan, you're looking at China.
Yeah. Like
there's Olympic medals to be won in rugby, even though it's rugby sevens, but can you develop 15s? You know, so I don't particularly trust World Rugby. So, you know, I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's but who knows? Like it could. Six Nations could be the 10 nations. Like, could you bring in USA? Add to that.
Point,
bring in Georgia. How many are we up to now?
With the clubs, so obviously they protest at the moment. You lose your best players for a bit.
Yeah.
If it becomes 10 nations, then we're in for a long. It's almost another World Cup every season.
Yeah.
Actually, that's right. And
great point.
Comes too many games.
So just moving on then. AD, I imagine you'll enjoy this. Neil, you're gonna have a job trying to defend Saturday. England 6, Scotland 11. I mean, I've got opinions on it.
Flattering scoreline, I think, to be honest.
It was a scoreline, definitely.
Scoreline.
AD, do you want to go first on this? It might be another 38 years until you get asked that question again.
We've been waiting a long time for it, so I must admit I was conscious not to rub it in too much because I know it comes round so often for us. We're used to being on the wrong end of of results like that.
Yeah.
But the stats, the possession, the number of attempts. I don't remember England getting into our 22.
No.
And that I think there was a bit of banter on Facebook or whatever. A few people saying, the referee in the first half. I thought a few of the decisions were a little bit on the soft side, but we were the team with the ball going forward. So the luck tends to roll with you.
Yeah.
It's one of those, if you're going forward, you seem to come away with the results. You come away with the penalties. The other team automatically is seen as trying to disrupt the ball, and therefore you will lose those penalties. But the the yellow card, totally fair enough. Finn Russell deserved his yellow, and the other one, again, taken round the neck, off you go.
Yeah.
For 10, do your 10 minutes in the bin. I don't think there was anything, controversial. I must admit, last 10 minutes of the game, I was nervous as hell.
Yeah.
And when England almost got that interception, we were playing pretty open rugby, and it was, we were trying to still play. And I love to watch Scotland when they are doing that. It's something I love to watch any team when they're playing that way, to be honest. But when you're throwing the ball around, But at that point, it's risky rugby. Almost play like an old traditional England. Stick the ball up your jumper and kick it to the corners. Boring as hell, but it wins you games. But I enjoy Gregor Townsend and what he's doing with the team.
Yeah,
he's playing, to Finn Russell's strengths, to Hogg's strengths. I thought Redpath's, Redpath in.
Fantastic,
I thought he had a great game for a young boy, small. He's not a big player.
No.
And I thought he just came in and he looked good. He just kind of he fitted in quite nicely. But I was pleasantly surprised on Saturday. I was expecting a different result, and I must say I was pleasantly surprised.
Well, I was expecting like a cheeky Facebook message or something, AD. They'll normally get one when Scotland do us over. But
and there was a bit of Scotland to Scotland posting going on there. I was conscious not to really, a little bit, had we been in the pub and a few pints the wiser, then I'm sure there'd have been some more messages flying around. But
talking of being a few pints to the wiser, Neil Williamson certainly was on Saturday. We had a Dodgers Zoom call with a few of the lads watching the game. I mean, Neil, you don't really know what's going on the best of times. Do you remember the game on Saturday?
No, I remember a fair bit of it, to be fair. No, all I can say is those who, AD, you mentioned some people like had to go at the ref. I thought the ref had a great game. I can't remember anything in particular he got wrong or anything like that. Scotland, pure and simple, deserved the win. They wanted it more. They turned up. England just looked a shell of themselves. They looked like they were just going through the motions on the training pitch, which evidently showed. Mm-hmm. They were one-dimensional. They were just kicking the ball back to Scotland every 2 minutes. We were just playing into Scotland's hands. Because you got like the likes of Finn Russell and Stuart Hogg who can put the ball on a bloody twopence from their bloody try line. So why the bloody hell would you keep kicking the ball back? And it was just like watching bloody England in the 90s again. You know, kick. Just try and get possession. Oh no, shit kick. Not quite made it. Let's do another box kick. Oh no, we've given them the ball back. They've made ground. It just seems that
no plan B, was there?
All the other teams seem to be progressing and bringing on new things. And to me, it seems like England are going the other way. It seems like England are going back to what they think has worked in the past, which bloody didn't back then. You know, so, I mean, yeah, I can't take anything away from Scotland. They played very, very well. And, you know, it was a good game. But in the sense of, it's frustrating as an England fan to watch, just because, everyone had an off game. I mean, Johnny May must have dropped about 4 or 5 balls. You had Dan Robson come on at 9, and I don't think he had a very good game. He was just booting the ball away every 2 minutes. And I just don't think their minds were on it. Like you say, I mean, Billy with that stupid bloody tackle where he just grabbed him around the neck, and I almost felt from the first 5 minutes that Scotland were going to win, and they deserved to. So, yeah.
So, obviously, a couple of Sarries boys who have not been playing regularly in that squad. Billy V, in particular,
not looking fit.
Not looking particularly fit. Farrell not looking as sharp as he was. I didn't think Itoje had a terrible game. I feel like we gave away a lot of penalties, front five. A lot of the breakdown, going for silly balls and stuff. But, does Eddie Jones, arguably drop Farrell, the captain, and Billy V? If they're not getting match fitness, how can they be expected to play the internationals? Or do we think they're going to be rested and they'll be up for it?
It's an unpopular opinion, but I would bloody drop them, because we're going down the dangerous route of, sorry to swear, gentlemen, but going down the route of football where people are picked on their name, not on their form. And that's a very dangerous way to go, because at the end of the day, you're then going to be missing out on all these players that are absolutely on the form of their lives for the sake of a name that's not playing very well. It's ridiculous. You need to drop the big names every now and again.
In my opinion. With that, Pete, as a former player, how are they going to be feeling? Do you reckon rested or a bit rusty?
Yeah, a bit rusty. I would normally agree with you, Neil, as in the players playing the best rugby play.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what your name is or whatever. Only little caveat to that is it's an exceptionally unusual situation that the Sarries lads are in, because they don't have the proper game time to match fitness. But how else are they going to get it?
Yeah.
They'll get a certain amount, like they're playing no rugby. So, but then is it an opportunity to give fit guys, where they are, what they've done in the past? Is a chance to drop give other guys a go, and come the summer or whenever, and Sarries are back up in the Premiership, the guys get more game time. It's a bloody tricky one. It's a tough one on the Sarries players, because you probably know you're training as hard as you can. They're probably in the gym. They're all doing all that stuff, but they're not match fit.
Yeah,
and
a different type of fitness.
How are they going to get match fit? So now we in Ireland, there's a few older lads that they've no excuses. They're not in Sarries. Older guys that aren't performing, and why not give other young guys a chance? I'd be dropping a few senior names off the Irish team before I drop a few senior teams names off the English team, to be honest. So we'll see. Scotland and France were the teams of the weekend. They played fantastic rugby, and I hope, I'm sure they will, because I think Gregor Towns is a brilliant coach. He gets players behind. He's done great stuff the last couple of years, and Scotland have taken a couple of scalps and whatever, but you know what? It'd be nice to see Scotland bloody taking more than just 1 or 2 scalps, like actually
really
winning the bloody thing.
Linking a season up. Yeah. It's one of those you've seen certainly, past 10 years we've had times where we've dominated teams, but just not been able to turn that into points.
Yeah.
You know, we've been camped on people's 5 metre lines, and you know, we've been up against fantastic defence. Yeah. And for whatever reason, Scotland have never really just been able to turn maybe breaks where you've got lots of possession, you know, lots of pressure, and that pressure has never really resulted in points. And even on Saturday, you know, we missed a couple of kicks. They were kickable kicks, but you know, it happens. But you know, there was certainly 8 points on the table that we could have had, or maybe 5 points a definite. 8 was a push because one of the kicks was a bit of a stretch, maybe a Hastings kick. But yeah, you know, four chances for a try, and we get one of them. But
sorry, Aidy, I was going to say you've been where we were back in 1990 to 2005, and definitely. A lot of people have said it's up there. It's in the head, because where we were, we didn't know how to convert that pressure into winning a game, and because we couldn't believe we could win the game, and it took one scalp, then the confidence starts gradually going up and up and up, and it's not about physical ability, it's all about what's upstairs in the head. Do you believe it?
Yeah, I know that, and that's it. It's just getting the players the confidence to say, right, no, we can do this. You know, this is you know, we've got to go on. We know how we can play. We know we can play together, and then you know, and just stringing those scores together. You know, converting that pressure and territory into points. You know, and but I was obviously, you know, for a Scotsman, watching on Saturday was fantastic. Obviously, you know, it's tough for me to say commiserations to England, but yeah, you know, it's you know, like, we've waited a long time for it. So
we'll give you a pass on this one.
Majority of people online have been gracious with it. So, you know, the nose rubbing has maybe been less than, you know, there haven't been too many, you know, chariot wheels for sale and things like that. You know?
I have seen a few Calcutta Cup winners memorial T-shirts online. So
MOT centres offering free chariot wheels and things like that.
No worries. Right. Well, we'll come on to the final game of the weekend. Wales, Ireland. Obviously a 21-16 win. Game sort of marred by red card. Thoughts on that? Personally, I think that is red card all day long. I've heard others saying online and, you know, in the rugby chats that they don't think it is, that the game's gone soft. But at the end of the day, shoulder to head, you know, you're asking for trouble from the referee there. What do you think of that?
Yeah, no, absolutely spot on, Tom. And it was quite interesting because at first Wayne Barnes missed it, and a couple of the players actually said, "Look what's happened." And it wasn't until the TMO reviewed it, and Wayne Barnes, in all fairness to him, straight away, you know, he said to Omani, you know, it's to the head, and he's got to go. And I was quite surprised. I don't know about you, Pete, in terms of, you know, so early in the game, what sort of, you know, was he just being over exuberant, and was it a bit of an accidental elbow to the head there? I don't, because is Omani that sort of player? I didn't think he was.
I don't think the intention was to cause harm, or it wasn't a dirty intention, but it was a dirty stroke, as in it was a red card straight away. You know, it was a jawbreaker, and you know, or a concussion at least. You know, as in, now he didn't go out to do that, but or the Welsh guy, what was his name?
Thomas Francis.
Thomas, Francis, yes. He was in a really awkward position. Like, you rarely see it. He was kind of backwards, and, you know, Matney was in full swing. And, you know, when you are in the middle of a match, can you control your body to avoid that?
Yeah.
I don't know whether he could have avoided it, but it doesn't matter. It was a red card, and I think a Matney's probably good enough player not to do that. If it's a red card kind of offence. And look, it's a bit like Mahoney is he's aggressive and whatever, and it can it can spill over into maybe stupid stuff. But look, none of us have been in that cauldron playing at that level, Six Nations and whatever. So, his intention was not to cause harm, but he could have caused an awful lot of harm. It was definitely,
that's a fair point. I actually think the sending off actually helped Ireland. To be honest with you, I know that sounds a bit ridiculous, but the Welsh penalty count, I counted at least half a dozen penalties after O'Mahony got sent off, and there seems to be this thing, isn't there, that you get down to 14 men, you get a player sent off, and all of a sudden that team that's down to 14 is galvanized by that, and they say, we're not taking this, we're literally taking the game. I absolutely take my hat off to Ireland on Sunday, for being in the game. Well, the stats, we talked about stats and possession just now. It was something like 61-39 in favor of Ireland, possession and territory, and they're down to 14. And let's not take away from that. I'm pleased, obviously, as a Welsh supporter that we won the game, but I'm more concerned that we had trouble winning the game with 15, beating a side with 14. And, you look at that and a 5-point margin of victory, that, you look and say there's more negatives with Wales than there is with Ireland at the moment, and I think Pivac will be hellishly relieved to have got that win. I think it was just all on Sunday about winning the game. If it was 3-0 with a penalty kick, win the game. It's at international level. I'm talking about an avid fan. I've never played at international level. It's just win the game. Win the game. And you can't say any more then. And I thought the game was exciting. I thought it was. Do you know what? I thought it was classic Six Nations, two sides going hammer and tongs, and you want drama and you want tension and you want excitement, just like England, Scotland the day before. And I had a text actually 10 minutes before the end when we were 21-13 up, and a mate of mine, and he's an England supporter, and Mark said to me, "Come on, where's your money?" And I didn't reply to him because my money was with Ireland. And I honestly thought that momentum was with them, and literally they were going to get a penalty, they were going to get a try, and they were going to get the conversion to win the game by 2 points. And I didn't want to reply to him because I thought Ireland are going to nick this. So, relief to get the win. Great game. Penalty count, our indiscipline is costing us again. I thought George North was great at 13. He's still learning the outside centre role. Halfpenny at fullback was measured, was solid, not spectacular. There's still a lot of learning to do under Wayne Pivac. There's still a lot of, our line out again was just failing miserably, at times. So just mightily relieved, Pete, to get the win on Sunday. I really thought, a lot of my fellow Welsh supporters as well thought that you were coming to town and, you would nick it. Just I think the overwhelming sense was relief rather than unbridled joy, to be honest.
What about Louis Rees-Zammit? I mean, I know you spoke to me before about him, and obviously being a fan.
Yeah,
wow.
Neil, if you're that good, if you're young enough, you're good enough, or good enough, you're young. Get him in, get him exposed. And he took his try superbly. That he's what is he? 20? I think he turned 20 on the weekend. He's destined for big things. We've got this sort of issue in Wales, that when key players get injured, we seem to have a bit of a chasm there. And who do we fill the void with? But he's one of these players, I think, early on now that Wayne Pivac needs to wrap in cotton wool. He is an absolute gem. He's like lightning, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how he goes.
Do you think he's going to learn anything off Johnny May at Gloucester, or do you think he can learn anything off him?
I just think the guy's got got a huge future. You know, he needs to be managed well, and I'm glad that actually Pivac gave him the game on Sunday, because there's always that sort of worry that, you know, you're going to give these young players a game and then you don't, and then their confidence starts to ebb. But fair play to Wayne Pivac, he put him in, and it was just rewards.
Yeah, it's that, you know, he giving him the start where he can actually make an impact on the game, whereas he may come on last 15, 20. If you're down, you're not really going to have much impact as a winger. And if you're up, you know, everyone's going to be looking for a try. So when I saw him starting on the team sheet, I was particularly delighted, because I think it's really good for his development.
Yeah, you know, when we've had sort of problems. I mean, what was it? A year or two ago, there was another, you know, young player coming through the Ospreys ranks, Keelan Giles. You know, and everybody was getting up for him. He was another, you know, bolter as well that people were sort of getting out of their seats to watch. And then he was beset with one or two injury problems. And you know, if you got somebody else coming through, and now that, you know, we found Reece Samet, he goes in.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden, players like Keelan Giles may not get another sniff again. You know,
it's exciting though to see these youngsters come through. And what were your thoughts on the Ireland game? And Peter, was anything you'd like to add about that? Is there anything any players you take the drop or maybe bring in?
Look, I was happy with the fight. You know, I think that might have been, like, we're known as the Fighting Irish, and like without that, you know, we'll struggle. And I don't think we had it for last year, but you know, it's great to see that back. Now, I think we've enough talent to not just that, and actually play some good rugby and whatever. We defended our hearts out. So, you know, hats off to the lads. But you know, it's a little bit stale. I think it's a little bit stale. It's been stale since the World Cup, but you know, ebbs and flows. I think we could have hit rock bottom basically last year, and now we're kind of coming out of it. And like he's tried a few new guys. I think the likes of Billy Burns.
I was just going to mention Billy Burns.
Yeah,
I think you know, I think he's got to be your option at 10. I know he had a bit of a blunder, for want of a better word, at the end of the game, and you know, no one likes to see that. But I mean, I think he's got to be your 10 moving forward.
Yeah, him or someone apart from Johnny Sexton, as in for the future. You know, look, you can hang on to Johnny for another 2 years and he'll always do a job. But where do we go? Like, what world are we looking for? World Cups? Are we looking for, you know, the next thing, like just a 19, 20-year-old playing for Wales on the wing? Like, do we need to be bringing someone who's 38 years of age to the next World Cup or whatever?
It's a safe pair of hands. It's good to have in the squad, maybe, but I know what you're saying. You don't really want it to be your future.
Yeah.
You know, it's limited, unfortunately, but
and we have a few good 10s there. Like, it's just that they need game time. Like, you never know if they're up for playing international level if they don't get a game. You know, we know what Johnny will do, so we're
give them a run out against Italy, maybe then, or you give them a
absolutely.
Run out.
I'd actually throw him in confidence, right? He kicked to the corner, made a feck up, the online bullying, and like, you see the worst of it. Like, we all make mistakes. All the players got around and said, "Fuck it, don't worry about it. Let's get on with it." I would actually start him to bring back his and say, "Look, fuck it. It's just one thing. It'll never happen again in your career." No. And as Johnny Sexton said, right? Okay, he could have kicked to the corner and hit it maybe 15 out, safe. You know, it's like but he was aiming for 5 meters. He was aiming for 5 meters because Johnny Sexton's right. Like, the chances of you getting a maul, like, the chances are we need to maul that and score. Okay, now to score a maul try from 15 out is like maybe less than 5% chance that the maul will go 15 or even from 10 out. The difference between 10, like, so, or from 5 out, then you're kind of up maybe 40%. So he had to actually go and he went for it. because it would have been worse to be safe, get a line out, 15 out,
and then the whistle to go. Yeah.
So,
but something else should have happened there after the game, Pete. Gareth Davis should have bought Billy Burns a pint, because Gareth Davis potentially could have lost us the game there. You know, when he kicked aimlessly into midfield without a hold. And as Wayne Pivac said in his press conference afterwards, one of our boys wasn't on the same sheet as the rest of the players, you know. So, you know, Gareth Davis, bit of a rush of blood to the head there. He should have bought Billy Burns a pint. And as Dom said, nobody wants to see that. And as relieved we were that he did it, you know, as a Welsh, I'd be lying if I sort of didn't yelp when it happened. But after about 5 or 10 seconds, you think, you poor sod, you know, because. But quite rightly, you're a 10, you're in that position, and fair play to him. He went for it. You cannot take that away from him. He learned from that. You know, of course he will.
Yeah, and we've 2 or 3 other 10s as well. Like we've Jack Carty, who's playing week in, week out with Connacht, really good player. We've Ian Mannigan up in Ulster. You know, so like there's 2 or 3 guys that I think we need a 10 that needs 4 or 5 games in a row.
Yeah.
And whoever that is, give him a try and have Johnny there to come on, do his thing. It's, you know, and stay with the squad for another year or whatever, and have that progression. But I think we need to start changing that 10.
Definitely. Right then, we'll just wrap it up. Next week's games, we'll just pick the winner. We won't go for a score. That's a bit niche. Or unless you want to go for a score.
We'll just say by 10, by 20, by whatever, which winning team by how many points.
All right, yeah, nice and easy. Okay, start with England, Italy, 2:15.
I think it's going to be a 50-pointer. I think England are going to go bounce back and hurt them this week.
Yeah.
I think they'll have had a shoeing in the dressing room after the Scotland game. And I was saying that Italy will have had a shoeing, but I'm on the same page as Neil.
Yeah, I think it's England by 35-40 there. I think they'll come out, they'll be mightily unimpressed by what happened last weekend, and they'll want to put things right.
Yeah.
England by 50.
England by 50. Scotland, Wales.
This
is a tough one. I wouldn't want to put money on this.
All right,
it's at Murrayfield, but there's no, is it? It is Murrayfield, and there's obviously we've got no fans there, you know. But
no fans at Murrayfield normally, is there?
If we can hold it together against England, I think we're in for a close game. I think we're in for a 21-16 or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, I think, but to Scotland, obviously.
Obviously.
Do you know what? This fixture down the years, bar the odd fixture, has always been just incredibly exciting, isn't it? And both sides have always gone for it. And you know what? If we lose on Saturday and it's something stupid like 44-42, I'll be happy that I've watched 80 odd minutes of pure entertainment. I hate to say this as a Welsh supporter, I'm going to go Scotland by 3. I really am. I just think that. I just think at the moment we're still lacking that bit of confidence, that we don't quite know that the transition is still there. It's hanging in the air from the Gatland era into the Pivac era. So he's still trying to put his mark down. We've got a couple of players out injured. I know that they've, Botham's been called up and Lewis Halaholo as well. And, great players. Just think there's a little bit too much of Scotland by 3. Don't put that out, Tom, whatever you do.
Well, it's I'll cut that bit.
Scotland home advantage by 5.
By 5.
I think that'll be the game of the weekend. I think that'll be a really close game, that game.
Definitely.
No, Wales could turn around and beat Scotland by 15 points. You know, the Six Nations, you don't know.
Anything could happen.
I know who I'll be cheering for. And then to wrap it up, Ireland, France, 3 p.m. on a Sunday. That is a Six Nations classic fixture for a 3 p.m. Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
The last international rugby game I was at was France-Ireland in Dublin 2 seasons ago or whenever it was. And Ireland beat them by 34 points or something, like the biggest win Ireland ever had against France. A really good Irish team on form. I think we peaked about then, and France were at their worst. So, completely different game now.
Almost vice versa.
Yeah, it's almost vice versa. But I think with a bit of dog,
and 15 men.
Like the head is going to say, "Oh, France will probably win that 15 points or whatever."
Yeah.
No, I go Ireland by 2 points. 2 points.
Ireland by 2 points with a bit of dog.
Billy Burns is going to drop a goal to win the game, and he's going to be a hero.
National hero.
National hero.
Yeah.
I think although France were immensely impressive at the weekend, will Ireland bite back? I think it's another tight one, but I think it's a 33-27.
Yeah.
And maybe Ireland are just going to get the edge on it. I think, after losing on Sunday, despite, playing well, I think, but could be 50-pointer. Who knows?
Yeah.
Nations, anything can happen, can't it?
Yeah.
I'll back the trend. I'll go France by 3 as well.
France by 3.
Yeah. Scotland by 3, France by 3. I just think it'll be, we say 2 incredibly close games. I really do. I think that France-Ireland game, that Neil, could be potentially the match of the weekend. Saying France just basically on the premise of Dupont, what we said earlier on, that he could potentially. But again, it's difficult to tell. In terms of because there's no crowds there. The crowd can be an extra 5 points.
Sure. So, I love it with not having crowds though. Hearing the comms of the players talking to each other is fantastic. I don't know about you boys. That might sound like a really sort of Anaraki Sado type thing to say, but personally, I think it's great. I don't know what you boys are thinking.
Brilliant.
They are losing, like you say, Dave. They are losing an advantage. You haven't got the home advantage anymore.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
fans there and chanting "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot." That's a different game. That's a different game altogether.
Yeah,
but I think it in a way suited Scotland because they were the underdog. Like, this is, you won't mind me saying this, Adi, but they were the underdogs. That obviously goes towards them. They played out their skin, but they also didn't have the home fans, putting that pressure on. So it's. I think it's going to make it a bit more of a leveler playing field this year, maybe, in terms of that.
Oh yeah.
No, definitely.
I'll have to keep an eye out for the comments. Actually, I have been, there actually has been a few good ones. So now that you've highlighted that, even in the highlights that I watched, there was 1 or 2 comments. I said, "Oh yeah."
But no, right. I think we'll call it time there. Thank you very much for joining us, gents, and voicing your opinions.
Guys.
No worries.
And
good luck on the weekend.
Yeah, well. Hopefully, we'll.
Dave, I hope your team loses. Just by a little bit.
Gracious to the end. But no, thank you very much, gents. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And hopefully we can all catch up again soon. A big shout out to ITS for supporting us on this episode. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you very much.